You know, I know people are, or I wouldn't say I know, but I kind of figure some people might be questioning what's going on with this whole TNA WWE relationship. Now, I did an on-screen video talking about who I think WWE could be signing to the roster from TNA once their contracts are up. And I've heard people say, and I'm in agreement with it, that if Ricochet is definitely done with the WWE, that he should be more TNA bound than AEW bound because, one, TNA has this relationship with WWE, and it would keep him kind of close to home. But as I've talked about before, this is the Triple H era, so we don't know what exactly is going on with said Ricochet contract and whether or not he's staying or he's going. All signs point to he's staying. I mean, not staying, but going. All signs point to him going. But again, you never know. You never know. We all thought the same with Drew McIntyre. We all thought the same with Chad Gable. Natalia's probably locked back in, maybe. We all thought the same with, Seth Rollins, and we got proven wrong there. And Becky, obviously, we're going to get proven wrong. So, we don't know. We don't know what's going on with Ricochet. But again, people say that, with this partnership with TNA should be a better landing spot for him. So that way he can spend a year, maybe two there, kind of reinvent himself, rediscover himself, and then come back to WWE and say, hey, I'm ready for the big time. But we'll see. We'll see. But the reason I bring this up is because when you look at this and you compare it to the partnership that TNA, when they were Impact, had with AEW within AEW's first couple of years, it felt like in a lot of people's minds, when they kind of look at, the difference already, it kind of felt like, AEW was more about themselves. Like they wouldn't really give TNA, an inch. They wouldn't give them a reprieve, if you will. Now, some might say, well, they gave the Good Brothers somewhat of a reprieve and everything, somewhat of a chance, an opportunity. They were TNA. That's true. But here's the thing, though. Anderson and Gallows were part of the Elite. They were friends with the Bucks and Omega, so they played off that situation to kind of cater to the favoritism of the EVPs. And besides, the EVPs, you can't tell me that they didn't have no say, whatsoever in, Anderson and Gallows getting put over, on AEW television, even though at that time they were contracted TNA talent. But the thing is, though, with that being the exception or so, nobody else really got a chance to go over. I mean, you had Moose, who is the current TNA champion, challenge, in Daly's place for the TNA championship or Impact World Championship against Kenny Omega. And you would think, okay, Moose is the most believable man to do it, but they didn't let him do it. They had the Bucks interfere, and he lost. But what do they do to rectify this? And I do apologize. That's a notification that just came in. But what do they do to rectify this? What do they do to rectify this? Instead of choosing a Impact/TNA star to come in and take the title, off of Kenny on AEW home turf or AEW in an AEW ring, or even, have Kenny drop it at a TNA event, what do? They instead give it to a contracted AEW talent in Christian Cage. And they get Christian to win the title on the first episode of Rampage just to get people watching. And the question obviously is, how did that, not just how does, but how did that benefit Impact Wrestling, TNA? It didn't. I mean, all it did was allow AEW to lend them one of their top guys, at that time that they had just recently signed, to be there because they were the champion. That's all it was. Just, we're going to lend you a guy that you used to have and everything, and guess what? You can have him for the time being because, even though he's contracted to us, he's your champion, and hey, we want to keep this partnership going. But again, it's like, how did that ever benefit TNA, Impact Wrestling? It didn't. All it did was benefit AEW. And why? Because Tony Khan, even back then, I'm not trying to speak bad of the guy, but Tony Khan wanted to once again prove, even against the likes of Impact Wrestling, even through a partnership, that his company was far superior. So it's like, you look at that and you're saying, well, how much of a difference is that compared to what's going on right now? The difference is basically WWE and TNA, they have an understanding. Triple H and his crew have an understanding. Shawn Michaels and his crew have an understanding, of what needs to be done, of how talent should be utilized. I mean, look, they bring in Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace, not once, but 3 times, and only once since she's appeared, well, not once, but 4 times? Yeah, like 4 times. Royal Rumble, announced a surprise challenger against Roxanne, a match on NXT, and then the title match against Roxanne. So they brought her in 4 times, and only once out of those 4 times did she ever, truly lose a match. Now you might say she lost the Rumble, lost an opportunity to win the Rumble. That's the Royal Rumble. That was expected. But her showing up, basically putting that, put back that notice, or put back that hypeness of the Rumble of, you never know who's going to show up. You never know from where is going to show up. And when you look at, again, how they treated Jordynne Grace outside of the Rumble, she's only lost once. And the way she lost, basically, was because she got distracted. So it still made her look strong in the end, even though she lost. So they didn't totally bury her. Okay? They didn't totally bury her. And on top of that, they sent Tatum Paxley from WWE's NXT, Tatum Paxley, whose gimmick is she is obsessed with gold. She's basically the golem, of NXT. They sent her to be the mystery challenger for Jordynne Grace at Against All Odds, and they had a great match, but in the end, Jordynne Grace won. If Triple H and Shawn Michaels and all of them wanted to prove the superiority over TNA, they could have had Tatum. They could have said, "Guys, we want Tatum to walk out of Against All Odds as the Knockouts champion and bring it to the NXT." They could have done that, but they didn't, because they understand that basically being equal opportunity all the way around is beneficial for everybody. By the time you watch this, which should be about July 2nd, if I'm calculating right, because this is going to be one of my advanced uploads because of my mom being on vacation at that time. But when you look at what happened, by the time you watch this, what happened on Tuesday night NXT, with that 25-man battle royal, okay? When you take a look at what happened there, on NXT, the 18th, the June 18th edition of NXT, at the time of this recording, we don't know who's going to be in it outside of the, NXT talent, that's already there. But there has been reports, if you believe them, and rumors, because of this partnership, that we're going to see some TNA talent. So who's to say we might not have seen at this time, by the time you listen to this, who's to say we would not have seen a Josh Alexander show up in there? Who's to say we would not have seen a Hammerstone, if you get what I'm saying, or an Eddie Edwards, or a Moose? I'm just saying, you don't know. You don't know. Who's to say we wouldn't see, a Trey Miguel and a Zachary Wentz of the Rascals, and they're in this battle royal, and they come face to face with Wes Lee. I'm just saying, we don't know. We don't know who would have shown up. We don't know who would have shown up in that battle royal at the time of this recording, because that's the next night. That is June 18th, and I'm recording this June 17th, and you're listening to it on July 2nd. So we wouldn't have known, but any of those could have been, if not were, a possibility. But here's the thing. I bring all that up because of the fact that they're all about equal opportunity. If they did decide by the time you listen to this that, hey, we want to, throw TNA more favoritism and we're going to let a TNA talent win, then guess what? Heatwave, you would have a TNA talent against Trick Williams. That's possible. You got these partnerships with, Pro Wrestling Noah possibly happening. And it's like, well, what if some of those guys show up and one of them wins? Again, possibility. The point I'm getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is it seems just in its short time, if you will, okay, just in its short time, it feels like this partnership, between TNA and WWE has benefited, TNA better than their partnership with AEW. And that's a fact. That is a truthful fact. I know people may not want to hear that, but even though it hasn't been, as long as the partnership with AEW has been, you have to admit that in the short term, you already see the possibilities of how much better and how much more equal this partnership is. Because again, I'm telling you, they could have easily ordered, basically, push the weight around. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Push the weight around and told Anthem and told TNA, hey, we want Tatum Paxley to be your Knockouts champion. They could have done that, but they didn't. They said equal opportunity. All right? Equal opportunity, and that's what we're seeing. Now, yeah, I admit, like I said in that video, and everybody else has kind of pointed out, even though this is, a partnership that helps benefit all parties, involved, TNA especially, that in reality, it's also a partnership that allows WWE to scout and look and try to recruit potential future talents they can sign to their contract, sign to their company on a full-time basis, like a Jordan Grace, like a Moose, like an Eddie Edwards, and so on. So it's a win-win all the way around. More exposure and notoriety for TNA. And for WWE, it's like, hey, who can we get from the roster when the time is right? And possibly who can we sign back who used to work for us that works for them now? Who can we bring in or bring back in? You see what I'm saying? I mean, who's to say by the time you listen to this and you watch it on July 2nd, who's to say that on the June 18th edition of NXT, who's to say that one of those entries in that 25-man battle royal isn't Nick Nemeth? That's right, Dolph Ziggler. Who's to say one of them won't be him? Imagine that. Nick Nemeth, being part of that, wins it, and he challenges Trick Williams, and hey, Dolph's back, but he's representing another company now. That could be interesting. That's good storytelling when you think about it. He has an opportunity to redeem himself and show everybody that, he used to work with and associate with, hey, I could still go. That's a good story to go with. You never know. Or imagine if maybe they choose to, on June 18th, 2 weeks ago from the time you listen to this, who's to say they wouldn't have chose Eddie Edwards? I'm just saying. Possibilities are out there and are real. But again, I know it sounds strange to make a comparison so soon, but I think everybody would agree that even in the short term of this partnership so far, WWE has benefited TNA more than AEW ever did. Because unfortunately, what this does is it shows that even though Tony Khan extended the olive branch to TNA and said, hey, let's when they were Impact and said, hey, let's work together, he didn't have the best intentions. He didn't understand how a true partnership with other wrestling promotions work. He didn't truly understand that unless he felt it would benefit him in the long run. I mean, yeah, once in a while, Tony Khan will allow someone from New Japan, someone from CMLL, or even AAA, if they still work with AAA. True, he'll allow, a talent once in a while from those areas to, go over a talent in AEW, but most of the time it's been one-sided in AEW's favor. If you get what I'm saying. So to me, I think everybody, and they have a right to their opinions, would say that, even though in its short-term partnership so far, that even though some would say it's not a true fair assessment in comparison to make, it seems that WWE understands better about what partnerships can do for wrestling companies. And it's because of the fact that the guy that's basically leading the charge on this, or the guys leading the charge on this, Nick Khan and TKO, but they're leading they are. We're trying to find the right word to say here. They are leading the charge alongside the ones that are in front, the ones that are saying, take the reins and show us what the future holds. That being Triple H and Shawn Michaels, because they understand that if we're going to partner with other promotions, we got to be fair. We got to be fair to them, because more than likely they'd be fair to us. But that's just an opinion. But they understand better. They understand the ins and outs of how a partnership in pro wrestling between other wrestling promotions work. You got to have an equal footing. You got to have an equal basis. You can't just do what Tony Khan did years ago and say, hey, I'm going to force Impact Wrestling TNA to put the championship on Kenny Omega and everything. And by the way, I'm going to just have the title change between two AEW stars instead of between Kenny Omega and a TNA talent. And then also decided, no, by the way, that title change is going to happen on the first edition of my show, Rampage. It doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't benefit anybody. And when you really think about it, it makes Impact Wrestling TNA look like a bunch of fools. It made them look like a bunch of fools. Now, whether you agree with the backstage, shenanigans going behind the scenes there under Anthem Sports, it seems that they are trying to better themselves. They are trying to better themselves. And a partnership with WWE and other promotions that want to partner with WWE is possibly the way to go. I mean, think about this. There is speculation that AJ Styles will go back to TNA for Slammiversary and compete there. Whether it's against Moose for the world title or some member of the system, who knows? But that right there is a huge deal. Especially if AJ goes over there, goes home to TNA for this one match, maybe against Moose for the world title, and puts Moose over. That right there would be telling. That right there would be telling, because that shows you that Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Nick Khan and TKO better understand how partnerships work. And again, by the time you listen to this, June 18th edition of NXT could have had a TNA talent go over in that battle royal and be the one to challenge Trick Williams. You never know. But what I'm saying, and I'm saying this in closing, because I know I sound like I'm repeating myself, what I'm going to say as clear as I can. It might be too soon to make a fair comparison, but I think when you really get down to it, even though the partnership has been shorter so far, than the partnership TNA Impact Wrestling had with AEW, I think everybody would agree that WWE's partnership and treatment of TNA is a lot more fairer and a lot more balanced and equal than AEW's was. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere. I do apologize for that notification again. But let me know what your thoughts are. And until then, I am out.